Here we go.
35, huh?
So hello, good morning everyone. My name is Christian Brink. I'm the CEO of Urban Sharing, which is a software platform for micromobility and specifically bike share. We're currently in 8 cities around Europe, and I am today super excited about having managed to get this great panel with the main operators of bike share. It's quite a theme to hear about scooter share companies and large free-floating systems, private investment, etc. in this context. So I'm very happy to actually have managed to get the largest bike share systems of Europe into one panel. And I'm super excited to be surrounded today by Christian Dufft, who is the CFO of Donkey Republic, based out of Copenhagen. It's a Danish bike share supplier and operator that has been around for more than 10 years. Let's give it up for Christian. Next, we have Jacques Greiveldinger, CEO of Smovengo. Smovengo is well known for being the operator of the famous Velib system in Paris. So thank you for being here, Jacques, today.
You're welcome.
Damien Vander, Heyden, legend in the bike share industry already from INURBA Mobility, which is a Spanish operator based out of Barcelona, has a dozen systems around Europe that they operate. And yeah, good to have you here, Damien.
Thank you.
For this. And last but not least, we will have the presence of Tomasz Wojciechowski, who is the CEO of Nextbike Poland. He has a punctured tire at the moment on his way coming here with the bike, so he will just join us whenever he gets to the hall. But we'll get started now, right away, because we have 35 minutes where we're going to talk about the future of bike share. So we're going to basically look into the future, 5 years ahead, 2030, and all our conversations here with Donkey Republic, Smovengo, INURBA, and Nextbike are going to be about what you see is going to be the future. So we'll just get right away with the first question. It's a question for you, Jacques. Because you haven't really been around in a lot of conferences, so it's actually very nice to have Paris here for the first time, actually giving a little outlook. And Paris has indeed been a role model for many cities. So looking into 2030, what do cities need to do to look more like Paris?
Okay, thanks for the question. Hi, everyone. To be so successful as Paris, I think there are 4 main items that has to be captured by the cities. The first one being having a system with a high density of stations. We are station-based, and I think the big success in Paris is mainly due to the density. We have 1 station every 300 meters, and that makes sense, so you can use it anywhere, anytime, and that's the first thing. The second thing is, and we saw that in 2018 when we started the scheme, is electric bikes. It has changed everything. Currently, we have 40% of e-bikes. I think we can go even higher because the usage are even bigger than that. So when you think about the new system, you have definitely to think of e-bikes, because that's just giving a system of, easy to use for everyone. You don't need to be so strong to buy, especially when you have some small mountains. The third thing, which is also very important, at least in Paris, is affordable prices. We are a public transport system. The price in Paris are very cheap, and that's one of the reasons why we are so successful. So if you want to be with as many as 200,000 rides a day, which is what we are doing currently, we need accessible prices. And the fourth and last item, which is an evidence, is you need bike path everywhere. So the infrastructure of the city has to be designed for the bike. So it's with all those 4 things together, which makes a good political program, I think you could be as successful as we are now.
Very good. So I would say it's volumes, it's e-bikes, it's infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the fourth
prices.
And prices, subsidized prices mostly, right? All right. Thank you, Jacques. Let's get over to Christian to kick this off. Donkey Republic has experienced both in the private investment sphere of bike share as well as in tenders recently. What's the future looking like for the bike share business models? Private investments, tenders, both, or other forms of financing? Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I believe it's a mix of both because they complement each other quite a lot, and you can really get a lot of gains in each other. We make around 2/3 of our revenue with rider revenue coming from it. Also, in many cities where we don't have any subsidies at all. So where it's really important for us to understand what does the user want, how do we get them on the bike, how do we really fulfill our job as a public transportation company, but get the people to like our product and use it. And that forces us to be super efficient with the resources that we have and to be 100% focused on the user. And I think that plays in a really important role when we talk about big city tenders, because it is there for us to support the module shift and to get people to use the bikes more. And the experience of putting the user first is super important there. And I think on the other way around is what is important if you are in the city tender business is to have really good relationship with the cities and to be aware of that it's not just the users, but it's also the city and the citizens. And I think that has been also one of our key focus areas also in cities where we don't have contracts, but where we're just operating, but to have a good relationship with the city, to make sure that it's in line with their strategy, and to be a proper part of the infrastructure there. So I think it's a combination of being very user focused, having DNA of a tech company with the data that is necessary, and at the same time focusing very much on the right city relationships. So I do believe that the mix is the two. What I haven't talked about, which I think is also a good part, is then of course the business part where you talk about corporate memberships and the B2B part, which is I think then the third leg in that game.
So we're going to see more of that in 2030, more B2B partnerships mostly?
I think so. You see it a lot also overall that the companies need to offer their employees good transport solutions. Us bike sharing becoming the better transport solution in cities includes that of course as well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Christian. Let's kick it off with Damien as well. INURBA works under the premise of operational excellence in its cities. So what will operations look like in 2030, Damien, and what innovations can we expect to see in the operational side of bike share?
Thank you. Well, when we look around and we see what's happening with the revolution of artificial intelligence.
This is Thomas, by the way.
This is Thomas.
Sorry for being in like some trouble in traveling. Micromobility doesn't work always.
Don't say that here. It's fine.
No, that's to my leg. I do apologize, everyone.
No problem, Thomas. Good to have you here. We were asking Damien what operations will look like in 2030.
Yeah?
Yeah. Great challenge. Okay, so no, what I was saying is that when we look around and we see all these changes, with the technology, artificial intelligence, we can think that maybe technology will rule the world of operations. And we actually think it's important, but we actually think that it's not only about technology. It will not be only about technology by 2030. It will be about creating mobility ecosystems that responds to the needs of more users, not only bike share users, but different users. So we think, for example, that by 2030, operators like us will not only manage fleet, but a variety of bike services, many bike services. So this is going from a single fleet management to a full ecosystem of bike services. And this comes with operating different other bikes. So you mentioned e-bikes, but also cargo bikes, also maybe bikes for people with reduced mobilities. It also comes to include more long-term renting systems into public services. And in France, for example, we have a nice experience. Now we have more bike share, long-term renting bikes in France than bike share bikes. No? It's about, in France, if I remember the numbers, it's about 50,000 bike share bikes, traditional bike share, and it's almost the double for long-term renting. And it's interesting because the long-term renting bikes have better results in terms of model shift, for example. So the French agency, ADEME, says that 51% of the users of long-term renting bikes are reducing the use of their car. So we think that by 2030, it would be something important. By 2030, more integration to public transport. I mean, we see that in all the tenders today. Now, this is a real will from the cities. Technology, obviously, will be important, but at the end, it will be the people who will make the change. So people will be at the heart of operations, like it is today, no? And actually, the most important decision today in our services are done on the ground. They are made by real people, making real decisions. And they are this. I'm always impressed when I go to the operation ground, because we are here seated in a panel like this talking about future, but operation teams, they are doing the work on the ground. They are fixing, repairing, answering questions to irritated customers every day. and they are doing great. And it will not change by 2030. It will be the same.
Very bold statement. Thank you, Damien. So we've introduced the concept of long-term rental here and micromobility or bike share ecosystems in 2030 and the human aspect of operations in 2030. Thank you, Damien. Tomek, Nextbike has traditionally been a friend of cities, providing everything from e-bikes to cargo bikes and everything in between. So where's the hardware moving towards in 2030? Is it all going to be e-bikes, or do the mechanical bikes have a future there in 2030 as well?
Well, first of all, I think that 5 years in a bike cycling, technology is a huge gap, so we cannot foresee what's going to happen. But definitely the e-bikes category will grow. This is no doubt. We see right now across the Europe is over 50% of sales of the private bikes is e-bikes. So this category is growing enormously. We are also preparing for this wave. Actually, we launched a lot of bikes already, e-bikes on the market, and next year we will introduce the newest version of the e-bikes with the longer range of the battery, the different engine, and much more convenient for the users. So that's first of all, that's going to be definitely a significant growth. Yes, we had in the past kids bikes, for example. That was a great opportunity to convince the new customers.
Can you explain the kids bikes?
The kids bikes was an innovation we've made in Poland. We have adopted a very little kids bikes to the sharing systems. So basically, the kids could start learning how to cycle with the parents. The station were located usually next to the parks, but moreover, they had a first a touch with the sharing economy. So you don't have to own bike to use it, right? So that was a very, very fashionable wave. We've done it in several cities in Poland. The e-bikes, the cargo bikes, which is also category growing outside. I agree that the long-term rentals is something that is blooming, and the cities have special budgets, and they just started ordering next to the bike sharing system the long-term rentals. That's definitely. I think we regards the hardware and technology, we live in a time where the AI is developing so quick. I can imagine for all operations guys would be a dream to have some kind of self-diagnosing tools that they know what's gonna break on the bike before it breaks. And I think it's not a fantasy. We live in a time when the AI can support this way, especially on the e-bike, so you can just see and monitor the vehicles on the street without being there, because that's a biggest challenge. We cannot see if the chain breaks, the physical damage. We need to be there, unless the customer will not pump in the application or tell us. So I think especially e-bikes and connected to that's a duration of the ride, which means that the range of the battery will expand, definitely. I don't think also like e-scooters are like the last innovation in the micromobility. I think some things will come over. We always said like it's good to see this as like an ecosystem of the vehicles beside the public transport, which is integration, which is like a main goal for our business. We support cities in the long term, and we see the bike sharing system as a fulfillment for the public transport. So I think like even adding the scooters or like other vehicles to the fleet, so people have this freedom to choose what they want to use, when, on like to one purpose. That will be just like the future, like to give this like this freedom of like moving around the city without being connected to one shift or like a module, like a tram, bus, bike, e-bike, or whatever.
Very good question. Thank you, Tomek. I'll actually open this question to the rest of the floor. What do you guys think e-bikes versus mechanical bikes? You mentioned it, Jacques, a little bit. So do you want to follow up?
There is a need for some clients for mechanical ones. So 100% e-bikes first is very expensive. So if you are subsidized system, it could be an issue. And you have people who wanted to stay on a mechanical one, especially women, by the way. That's what we see in Paris. There are more on mechanical ones than the guys who wants to go faster somewhere. So I think there are places for both. And if you look on the investment point of view, it's much cheaper. So as I said, to be successful, you need to be cheap. So I don't think 100% e-bike is the only option.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I think it's what counts is how you can actually achieve the job of bike sharing, which is for me to be part of public transportation and do the module shift. And there you need to see what is the best product in the specific city you're in. So I think it's also, and how large is the city? Do you just focus on the city center, or do you actually want to get commuters to get into the city? And it's then really important to understand the users, to understand the aims that you have, and then find the products that fit the need best.
Okay.
And I think it's better to start from that point. And then I think the pedal bike is a beautiful product. It's very, I mean, we had it for over 100 years. There's still a lot of good improvements there, but it's simple to run. It's affordable. It's simple to maintain.
Yeah.
And that I think is another important aspect, that bike sharing has to be affordable. It has to reach people in transport poor areas. Of course, you can subsidize e-bikes, but it's even better if you have a good product that you can run efficiently and can so open up transportation for more people, which I also think is a beautiful idea with the kids' bikes, that you get them while they're young. Yes.
Damien?
Yeah, very short on e-bike. I think it also depends on the cycling culture of the city. And some cities, I mean, we know that people will use mechanical bike. Other, it's very difficult. I think about Marseille in France, for example. We introduced e-bikes, and it worked very well because this is not a very cycling city, and e-bikes motivated and stimulated new users. And today we have an amazing number of trips, which would not be the case with mechanical bikes. But I wouldn't say the same in some cities in Poland, in Germany, in Denmark, obviously.
Thank you. And so I'm basically understanding that we say that different modes of bikes, different ecosystems, and depending on the city, is the right receipt for 2030 for the cities. Now, digging even deeper into the e-bike question, there is a dichotomy out in cities between battery swaps versus charging infrastructure. So by 2030, who will have won? The battery swappers or the charging infrastructure? Open question.
Well, there is no answer yes or no. If you ask me as an operator, I would say I would love to have a charging station in every single place where we're operating. It's like increasing the ops cost, definitely. But people don't touch this a very a weak point, that introducing the charging station and access to the power, it takes sometimes a year or two. So basically you might wish to have a power and out station, but it's simply impossible. So I think the hybrid mode, even if you have a system, let's say 100 stations, 1,000 bikes, and you will cover 50% of the station, like a charging station supported, that's going to decrease your effort in operation significantly. But it's a dream scenario to choose a either or. It's no way you can choose a one direction. You need to be able to work on both.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is no clear winner. But what we see when we make some calculations, that we see that battery swapping systems are maybe most cost effective for light electric fleets with short contract. No, if you talk about Paris, I mean, 15 years contract with electric bikes. I mean, it would have been crazy to go for a swapping system. No, I mean, you have charging stations and you have time to depreciate this, and it's much more effective. Charging stations are much more effective for long-term duration contract. Our calculation, obviously there are many factors going into this calculation, but over 4 or 5 years time contract, we think it's more cost effective to have charging stations instead of paying swappers every day, depending again the country and the cost of the labor.
I guess there's also a question about standardization of charging infrastructure, right? Because if every single system has its own way, then battery swap becomes kind of the only way out sometimes. Jacques, what is your view?
We know what it means to change a system. Everyone knows what happened in Paris in 1918. So it's definitely a big challenge to change. So a standard of dock would be the dream of the operator, maybe not of the seller of solutions. But in addition to the length of the contract, you have also the intensity of usage. Even if we had a 4 years contract in Paris with no stations, we will not do 15 rides a day with an e-bike. So you need also to think about your infrastructure in terms of how many usage will I have, how many rides per day, and then you can design it the right way, because battery swap, I guess, you cannot do more than 6 to 7 rides a day. We do up to 15. So you need also to understand what is the needs, what is the rides per day you are targeting, and then you can adjust your infrastructure on that.
I think a lot of people in the room are quite jealous about Paris anyway, to have that large infrastructure.
If you want to come to repair our bikes, you're welcome.
I'm sure we can find some volunteers. Christian?
I think this is a very good point. And of course, if you have a large operation, it's important to have the right solution, and that should include also stations. But I think it's also important, what I mentioned earlier, to keep also the user in mind and to see what is the best way and how to best provide the bikes where they're actually needed. And that is actually quite dynamic. It can change quite quickly throughout the day where you want to have the bikes, where they're needed, and where to put them. And I think that's a big plus point of having a swappable operations, where you can just relocate the bikes if you have virtual stations. And I think another aspect is, of course, that we talked about earlier, the advancement in technology. So I think there are going to be a lot more preventive maintenance, and that you might do less repairs, so that also that the swappers of the batteries can also have more mechanical jobs. So I think there is something to it, that a bike gets a human touch, so you can quickly check brakes and all of that in order, and make sure that it's not only fully charged, but it's otherwise in a really good condition, and can combine it also with rebalancing. I think that's a big important part also, to not just have like these fixed areas, but to be really dynamic to see where you best put it. And I think that also connects it then to see how AI can help us to do that better. Because one argument that is definitely there is a cost. That is of course, a cost benefit with a charging station, but you need to see how it balances with the user needs.
Okay, so there the AI and the use of tech can help.
Yeah, I'm just adding also that we had the Olympic Games in Paris last year, and we had to build virtual stations for those events. And I think it's something, when you design something with stations, you cannot manage to have 1,000 bikes for a football tournament or something like that. So you need to have the flexibility to be able to receive at one time, in a very dedicated place, many bikes. So the future is probably a mix of being able to do those virtual stations and be able also to charge automatically downtown.
Makes total sense. I was just thinking while we were talking right now, I think with the four of you combined with your companies, we're at about almost 200,000 bikes combined, if not more. So that's
how much? How many?
125.
yeah, 125 Nextbike. And so we're actually talking about almost 50% of the market share here in this panel, if we think of shared bicycles right now on a per city basis, being at around 400,000 vehicles all over Europe. So asking the 50% of the market share in this room, by 2030, how many bikes are we going to have in Europe, if not 400,000 of today?
Okay, I would guess.
Any bets?
Well, I don't know, but what I see is that cities, we want more green cities. There is traffic in the cities. There are political will. There are better infrastructures. So I guess it will increase. I guess would be like hopefully 1 million, no, almost 1 million. But what we see is a trend, no. Well, for example, in our services. In most of our services, we have started with few bikes, or like in Helsinki, 500, and then we come to 4,500. In Marseille, it was 2,000 bikes. Now it's going to be 4,000 next year. In Gdansk, we started with 2,000, and now we're going to have almost 6,000. So what we see is that all the services, when they start, they are kind of undersized. And when it works well, the cities, they don't hesitate to activate expansions. No, you look at Paris. I mean, this is amazing. So expansions are activated by the cities many times. So we can hope that this movement will not change. Obviously, we need money for this from the cities, and we still have to make sure that city will keep financing these services. And we always remind to the cities that the cost of public bike share, actually it's between 50 cents of euros and 1.35 euro per kilometer ridden, and even less for long-term renting. It's 10 cents, 10 cents per kilometer. And if you compare this to the cost of financing metro, bus, tram, etc., I mean, it's less. It's much less. So we still have to insist in this way, and this is not only about cost. This is about environmental benefits, social benefits. So I don't think we will go down. We will increase. So that's why I'm optimistic about
Very good.
1 million.
1 million. Excellent. Somebody goes further.
Well, I'll give you the number on the end. I'm not so optimistic like you, but. Yeah, definitely. I wish this number will grow for like three aspects. First of all, I agree that every single city that we've been in, when it's like extending or like repeating the tenders, they usually like exceed the number of fleets. So it grows like just organic growth of the business. Secondly, I think we are in a very good trend. If you look at the cities, what happened, they starting like closing the downtowns for the cars. So I think even in Poland, we have like several cities that's closed for the clean transportation area, which means the old cars cannot enter this place. In the future, there will be only electric cars, and then probably in the future, then no cars. So I think we are in a brilliant trend. City will be not bigger. The streets will be not bigger. They'll just need like a different solution to move around the city, and I think that's what we are providing for the cities. And last but not least, which is like usually the biggest challenge we see right now is the financing of the city. I think social climate fund, which is coming like towards our needs and the cities. For those who doesn't know, it's like the European Commission has established European fund. It's like 87 billion euros for the 6 years. To mitigate, the effects of the ATS2 system in the future. So, and there is a huge chunk park for ecological transportation modes. So, cycling and bike sharing system are basically fitting into it. Just from our field in Poland, from the 17 states, 15 of them had agreed that they're gonna spend the money on bike sharing from those funds. So I think the next 5 years is like a good perspective. And the number, I don't think that cities follow with the tenders and contracts so fast to reach 1 million, like it took 400% of growth in 5 years. So I would be like very optimistic if we would say that we double this fleet.
Okay, so 800,000 maybe, something like that.
It's almost there.
I know you're especially always more.
But Tomek brought in a very interesting topic, which is European funds being channeled towards active mobility. There was also the European Cycling Declaration last year in October that was published. So yeah, Social Climate Fund. Jacques, with all of this, your bet?
I do agree with my bet is probably doubling, but the key, I think we have the technology, we have the operators, we have everything. The key issue is financing that. We all know, I mean, in the micromobility system, that results are the key. Yeah. And at some point, you need to have some return on your investment. So either on the operator sides, on the provider sides, and on the city sides, there is a key financial question. And at least in France, the finance situation of the city is not that good. So the key point will be how they will be thinking about bike sharing subsidized system is a good thing, and it's making money for the city itself. If they look only at expense, they will say, "Okay, I cut that."
Cost, yeah.
But there are hidden costs of mobility, and so we have together to teach and to show, as said Damien, that it's cheaper than train and buses. That we have to push the biking system and to convince cities that investing in a bike sharing, all say it's more money, but at the end of the day, it's less money global. And that's the key challenge for the coming years, because as you said, it's tenders, and tenders cost money for the cities, and they could be reluctant in investing too much, because there is definitely room to doubling in the next 5 years. At least there is the demand. Now we are sure of that. Yep. Do we have the economic equilibrium to match that? It's a more question.
I have a follow-up question on that afterwards, but let's get Christian's bet.
Good. Being the CFO on the round, I think then I'd be on the more skeptic side. Even though I wish all of you are right, I see it probably more at around 600,000. I do think there is huge potential also what you talked, that you can grow in the cities where already a bike sharing system is. I mean, within the cities, it would be great that for everybody there's a bike within 150 meters and getting there, and that if you live in the suburbs, you have a reliable way to get there. But I also see it as a challenge that you get the financing in place and be able to do that. And I think what's really important there is that you align the incentives both for the city but also for the operators, that more rides is better for everybody. And it is better for the citizens. There's a lot of proofs, like in regards to health and fighting transport poverty and all of that, but also that it's an incentive for us as operators to have more people ride the bike and drive that. And that, I think, will be key to get, hopefully, to the million, which I like actually quite a lot.
If I just recap, I think we don't have to convince the city that the public transport is like the mission of the city, and it's never makes money. It's never profitable. Each city in the world supports the public transport. The mission is to convince the city that cycling, bike sharing is a part of the public transport. Mm-hmm. Then they will not look in economic way on this like a project to make money on that, right? And from our perspective, it's also like a dream. I wish that everyone that's in the country in the road regulation, or like in a cycling, like a bicycle would be like a part of the public transportation. Yep. Then it will have a completely different status.
Yeah. Bike share is a complementary part of the public transport of the cities. I think we all agree in this panel on that one. I would also like to say that in regards to this specific question, some of us represent an advocacy group that is called Cycling Industries Europe as well, towards the European Union. And there we're working with advocacy towards the Social Climate Fund, European Cycling Declaration, and the horizon we have for 2030 is to get 1 million bikes to shared bicycles to Europe. So you were quite spot on, all of you. But let's see if we can get there. It's not too bad. I have the question now, a follow-up. Yesterday I was actually at the after party, and I had some conversations with a few people, and I realized that this audience, different to what us five are used to, were not so familiar with subsidized bike share, and I got a comment at some point that was, the private investment bike and scooter share systems are incentivized to increase riderships because that's where they get the money from, whereas the subsidized operators are incentivized to keep as many rides as low as possible. And I was like, well, that is not at all how this is working. And a subsidized bike share operator is, of course, incentivized to get ridership, but perhaps in different ways. I would just briefly like to ask you as the last question, explaining to this audience what you do to incentivize ridership in the subsidized city that you operate.
Well, in several contracts, we have like bonuses for rentals above the limits that city agrees. Just for you to know, in the tenders, the city needs to declare the parameters that you can just precisely calculate the costs. So basically, this is always good guess how many rentals there will be utilization. Let's say 4 times a day. If it goes above, you get some intensive a bonus for extra rentals. We use the tricks many cities in Poland have a case. We have a free-floating system, but it's station-based. I mean, we're hybrid. So you need to park obligatory in some spots in the stations. But if you park outside of the stations, you're gonna pay some extra fee. And people who rent the bikes outside of the station and bring back to the station, they get some extra bonus. So basically, that's also give a little bit freedom and leverage the rentals, right? And I think this is really fun in the subsidized contract that SLA is a main a topic for us not to get the penalties. But I think also the revenue shares. Above some rentals, we share the revenues, or the revenues goes to operator. I think always it's not a huge chunk of money, but it's always motivating the operator. So we have several approaches.
Yeah, I do agree, but I understand the concern, and it was like this 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I mean, in the tenders, you get high ridership or low ridership, you get paid by the city. So when it's raining, you're happy. Nobody will take a bike. But today is different.
Yep.
So in all the tenders today, we have this bonus and penalty system. So it obliges us actually now to achieve good targets. Otherwise, and you get bonus for better targets. So this has changed totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's no longer an issue in new contracts, and even in Paris, we had to discuss with the cities. We need to be aligned. If we don't have the same strategy as the city, the system is collapsed. So you have to be on the same line.
So there's no way that you could try to decrease ridership to maximize your margin.
We tried, we never succeeded.
Christian?
I think it also what I mentioned before. We have a lot of experience of running operations where we're depending on the rider revenue. So our app is optimized for that. We have good products for that. But I also think what's important is that if you look at scooter companies and so on, they focus on the city center where you have all the people willing to pay for that. But I think what subsidized bike sharing also allows you, when it's set up in the right way, that you also bring other people onto the bikes and get those people to ride a bike. And that is also has a big value for the city itself, and that's not to be discounted.
Completely agree. Transport poverty coverage. All right, that's it for today, folks. We've run out of time, but a big hand to the four. Thank you very much.